Now then, does music soothe, stimulate or excite you? Is there a tune or a singer that you particularly like and just makes you feel better when you hear them? Does taking part in music making, whether as part of a choir or an instrumental group, improve the quality of your life somehow? You've only got to look at things like the choir on television to know how popular and exciting the whole business of music making has become in this country. Music, of course, has got the ability to improve the way you feel, and this idea has been very much tapped into by the group that we're going to hear from now. They're called Musical Connections. Musical Connections became a charity last year. It started out in council care homes about 7 years ago. They provided music in the homes for the people who are resident there, and now they've got, a real stamp of approval, Arts Council funding. Let's just hear a little example of the sort of thing they do.
Were you ever in Quebec, stowing timber on the deck, where there's a king with a unicorn riding on the donkey? Hey ho, away we go, donkey riding, hey ho, away we go, riding on the donkey.
I should say that two of the guests sitting in front of me have just blushed this morning to hear themselves in action there, because with me in the studio this morning are Emma and Fiona, who are from Musical Connections, and Michael, who is a participant in one of the groups. Good morning to you all. Nice to have you with us in the studio.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in through the snow and the slipperiness and all the rest of it. Emma, let's start with you. Tell me about Musical Connections. Where and why and how?
Well, Fiona actually set up Musical Connections.
Oh, let me ask you then.
You can ask Fiona.
I'll ask Fiona first.
We set it up because we knew that music has an incredibly positive impact when you engage with it actively on people's well-being, and we knew that there were people living in care homes and sheltered housing schemes who didn't necessarily have the opportunity to take part in regular musical activities. So we set up groups initially in care homes, moved into sheltered housing schemes. We now have a community choir as well, and the groups in the schemes and the choir are open to the public.
So, that is absolutely key to this idea that it's not an enclosed thing that happens just for the residents or just for the tenants of a particular place. You actively would like other people from the broader outside community to come along and engage with it.
Yeah, we would. We know from our own research and from published research that there are a lot of people out there in the community who perhaps are looking for something to do during the week, during the daytime, are looking to make connections with other people, and music is a really good way of doing that. So our groups offer them that opportunity. We just want to let them know that we're there and that we're hoping they'll join us.
Michael, let me come to you and find out about your involvement with this. How did it start?
It started when my wife and I moved into sheltered accommodation at the end of 2015. And we saw this list of groups of activities that were available for the tenants there. And we thought, well, we both like music, let's try the Musical Connections. And we haven't really looked back since then.
What do you do? What have you been involved with?
Well, we go in, and our group leader is Emma, and she organises it, and she has words put up on the screen for us to sing. She has simple instruments for us to play. I mean, nothing like an oboe or anything like that.
Ukuleles.
Ukulele, yeah, I'll admit that one. But it's just enjoyment of music by the people there.
Have you got a musical history, a musical past?
Apart from being a drummer in a pipe band 50-odd years ago, no.
Well, that's quite a big apart from. Tell me about that.
I was a student at Rhodes University in Grahamstown.
In South Africa?
Yes. And the local regiment, the 1st City Regiment, was a Highland regiment. And the colonel wanted to have a pipe band. Unfortunately, he knew one of the students who already played in a pipe band in his home. So he asked that chap to organise and recruit a pipe band for him, which he did. and I happen to be one of them.
So it's rather nice, actually, that you are, through musical connections, you're sort of returning to making music.
In a sense, yes.
Emma, this whole idea, what kind of impact does it have on the people who are participating? I mean, Michael sounds like he thoroughly enjoys it.
Well, yes, we were talking about it on the way here because one of the key aspects is the sense of community that you get. So the group all get to know each other, and every week they're coming back and they're seeing the same people, and it's a really friendly place to be. So the music is a platform for the social aspect as well.
We are notoriously reticent in this country. We've just gone through that season of the year when suddenly, having gone to church because it's Christmas, you realise this does involve singing a carol, and you have 200 people in a church mumbling, maybe one or two fine singers who stand out, but we I don't know, there can be a certain reticence about making music, about singing. People make all sorts of excuses. I know I do. How do you break down that barrier?
We find that everybody joins in their own way. There are some people who don't like singing and they'll play the drum or the tambourine, or they'll sit and watch, or, people kind of create their own way of being involved. There are some great singers like Michael. He's great to have in the group because he sings loudly and that gives everybody else the confidence to join in.
Do you have a fine voice, sir?
Not really.
You're very modest.
So yeah, I mean, we're obviously the musician is always singing, which enables other people to join in, but everybody does it however they're comfortable doing it.
I mentioned it as part of the introduction, this business of A, becoming a recognised charity, and then B, getting Arts Council funding. Tell me more about that.
Well, becoming a charity was a difficult process, but it was very important for us because the project we had been running the project in partnership with City of York Council, who are very supportive of us, but do not have a lot of money to give to this sort of work. So we felt really to take the reins ourselves and to be in a position to generate our own funding, that becoming a charity was the way forward. And we approached the Arts Council. Partly because when I first set the project up with the council, our very first grant was from the Arts Council. So we hoped that over the intervening years, the development we've made would impress them, and they
well, obviously it did, because I mean, let's this is no small thing. This, because as you say, councils are strapped for cash.
Yeah.
So getting the charitable status so you can raise funds, they make you jump through many a hoop.
Indeed.
To prove your bona fides before you can become a charity, and then the Arts Council, we know how tight they have had to become with lots of recognised theatre companies and other people. So to give money to a project like yours is a real stamp, a real seal of approval.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of key things perhaps that swung it for us. One is that we do try to involve as many people as possible. Although Michael obviously has musical training and is a very musical person, that is not a prerequisite.
He's looking a tiny bit sceptical there, sir, at this.
Well, musical training was more or less how to swing a stick. Tenor drummer style.
You're far too modest, I'm sure.
I don't have any musical training on instruments or anything like that.
Right, OK.
But sense of rhythm is something you're born with. Or not, as the case may be. But so yeah, you were just saying.
Yeah, so musical training is not a prerequisite for getting involved in the groups, and our focus is very much on music for well-being and for improving the quality of people's lives. And I think being able, our track record shows that we are able to do that. We do make a difference to people's lives.
How do you measure that? I mean, I think we're probably all more convinced about that. I'm sorry to mention him again, but Gareth Malone and the choir on television, I think a lot of people will have seen those groups come together, either choirs that already existed or choirs that he's formed from workplaces and things like that. And people will have witnessed that, but it's a bit of a, I don't know, there might be a suspicion that it's almost a bit of television trickery.
Absolutely,
in the way that's pulled off.
Yeah, well, we get feedback directly from participants. It's very important to us that we work with the participants to develop something that they want to do, that is something that they really feel they're getting something out of. So obviously the way to do that is to talk to them, and we are very stringent actually in terms of how we track people's involvement in the group. We do individual questionnaires with each participant on a regular basis, 2 or 3 times a year, where we go through a number of different criteria and ask them to articulate for themselves what they think what difference they think the music is making. So, for example, do they feel that they are making closer connections with other people through the music? You know, that there's a question there for them to answer yes or no to. Do they feel more uplifted having taken part in a music session? Again, so we have a whole kind of raft of questions that we take people through that they can answer. They answer for themselves.
I wonder how Michael answers these questions. When asked what has being part of Musical Connections done for you, do you feel uplifted? Do you feel more connected having been part of it?
In a way, yes, because as it's been said already, there's the community aspect to it. You're getting to know other people in the centre where you are, and I enjoy music anyway, and some of the approaches are very entertaining.
Well, I suppose you could say, there is nothing that's more designed to break down barriers, particularly if you are laughing and smiling while you're doing it all. And we're not talking about achieving musical perfection, are we here,
not
Emma?
At all. Every group is very different as well, because when we're asking people what they want to do, we then tailor it to the interest in the group. So in some groups, they might really love playing handbells, and other groups, they hate it. So, you do different things depending on what's coming out. And if somebody has a real love for folk music, for example, then you would try and incorporate some of that.
How do you stop one person? If you've got a dominant personality who really wants this to be a folk music group, you've got to guide it so that it becomes a bit broader than that.
Yeah, you just have to make sure everybody's involved and that your comments are directed, to everybody in the group. And, some people come in, they can't hear very well or they can't see very well, and then you adapt to make sure that they're still involved. It's very individual service for each person that comes in.
We get to know the participants very well. We
so
develop a relationship.
If someone's being too guiding in their particular preference, you can broaden it out.
Yeah, and it doesn't really happen. I think because the group is very much about interacting and communicating, and also mutual respect actually for people's interests and abilities. So if somebody is getting excited about something in particular, there's usually somebody else in the group who'll have something to say about that. And
I get the feeling. I mean, it's very interesting this because we're talking about music, but music is actually the byproduct of the musical event that we're after here, which is people breaking down barriers between them, between people who might live in the same community but might stay behind their own front doors. And there is a bit of a tendency, that English reserve that we have, and there's nothing sort of more designed to get rid of your reserve than either singing your heart out or playing an instrument.
I think it also is the case very much in sheltered accommodation, because first of all, most of the people there are past their best, if I may say so.
No, reaching the prime of their lives.
All right, but a lot of them seem to be rather reticent about pushing themselves forward as they see it, and so they tend to hold back a bit. Wow. But in the case of Musical Connections, there's no need for them to feel that way at all. They're all welcome, and I'm sure they'll all enjoy it.
There we are. Well, you couldn't have a better commendation.
We also do intergenerational work and involve the schools in the local areas. So we actually reach out even further than the people that come to the sessions. We have several schools on our list, primary schools. The children come in or we go to them. So that's another aspect of the project.
And the universities, both of Yorkshire universities are involved, so we have a lot of students.
It's a multi-generational thing.
It is, yeah.
If someone listening this morning has been inspired and thinks, I'm not the world's greatest musician, I'm not the world's greatest singer, but I like the sound of this idea, you're very keen to have people in from the broader community, how do they find out more about you?
Well, if they're on the internet, we have a website. Do you want me to give
Please,
you that?
Yeah.
So that's www.musicalconnections.org.uk. Or they can ring us. Do you want the phone number?
Well, if you give the phone number to the producer of the programme, people know our phone number very well. They can give them a quick ring and get it like that.
Yeah.
Lovely to meet you all this morning. Thank you for coming in through the snowy conditions and the slippery pavements to talk about Musical Connections. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
We shall watch as it grows and grows and grows. Emma, Fiona and Michael this morning and Musical Connections. Give us a quick call, 01904 641 641 if you'd like to know more, and we'll give you the relevant number and website address and put you in touch, and you can think about joining in and getting involved.